Here we have the first plenary session, starting with Dr. Ushma Ashwin Kumar Bhatt. Dr. Ushma Ashwin Kumar Bhatt is an associate professor and the head of the Department of English Language and Literature at Nandakwara Mahila College of Bhavnagar, Gujarat. She has published, she has pursued PhD and MPhil. She is frequently invited as a plenary speaker, resource person, chairperson, and even the guest of honor in the various national and international conferences, seminars, workshops, and symposia. She remains expert in the UGC NET aspirants frequently. She has got a Research Excellence Award in March 2020 and the Best Teacher Award in 17th January 2019 from NMC Institute. She published more than 37 research papers in Scopus and Index journals. Her five books are published under her single authorship. In the present chapter, she has given information about the use of English language and social work education, which will be useful to every professors and practitioners. Welcome you, ma'am.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Hello,
ma'am.
yes. If I am audible, hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am,
Shirley?
you are. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, the administrative department, and thank you, Shirley, for the beautiful introduction about myself. I think I am audible, so I am speaking without any hesitation. Yet many voices are coming over here in my mic. Maybe it is from this side only. Let me check. Or somebody's mic is on. Is it like that? Please stop the mics. Okay, thank you. Now, let me tell you very first thing. Good morning, all. Thank you very much, Dr. R.S. Rajin sir, who had given me the chance to speak over here as a plenary speaker in this astoundingly wonderful, superb international conference about the post-colonial studies. And thank you very much, the Lavender Literary Club and the Welland College, the English Research Department of English. I'm very happy to talk over here and share my incentive ideas regarding the post-colonial trajectory. I would like to tell over here one important thing that from June 2018, I have been teaching the post-colonial students, the students of English literature, this particular trajectory, post-colonial literature. And it is very interesting over here today to share the things and ideas in this particular trajectory with the help of this wonderful conference. Thank you very much. Now let us come to the point. I think I am audible, so I need to share my screen to see the PowerPoint presentation that I have made for this particular conference. So I'm sharing the screen, and if it is visible, I request Shirley or that administrative person if they are able to see my screen or not. So
Yes, ma'am.
let me share it. Okay, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible.
Okay, thank you. Now, as you can see over here, this is my small brief introduction about myself. I am Dr. Ushma Bhatt, the head of the Department of English at PG Center at NMC in Bhavnagar University, and I am the Board of Studies, member of the Board of Studies, the examiner of Central Assessment Center. And here today's topic is, this is the 3 days international conference on 25th of November. We are meeting over here in this online mode. The first thing I wish to tell over here, it is about the post-colonial influences on classics. Most of the thing about post-colonial literature is told and explained by Pathan, Dr. Pathan madam. So I don't want to repeat anything much more about the post-colonial influences of Europe and America and much more. But still, I need to tell some of the things, some of the keynotes being things which could be connected with this classics ideology. Post-colonial theory is a body of thought primarily concerned with accounting for the political, aesthetic, economic, historical, and social impact of European colonial rule. It is found from 18th till 20th century and right now also, as well as there are certain theory which takes many different shapes and interventions. That world we inhabit is impossible to understand except in relationship to the history of imperialism and colonial rule. So it is sure, and we can say over here that post-colonial theory deals with imperialism basically, as well as colonial ideology. Both the things go together with post-colonial concept, and here it means that it is impossible to understand or to open or to keep European philosophy, European literature, European history as existing in the absence of Europe's colonial encounters and oppression around the world. So, naturally, post-colonial theory and post-colonial literature, naturally, it takes the most of the part and most of the things regarding the European literature and European history. But still, I need to tell over here that post-colonial literature could be seen with a new classics ideology, and that which we are moving towards it soon after 2 3 slides. Map of post-colonial countries. Look here, I wish to say that the England has seems to be the highly post-colonial, the colonial power under which most of the other countries, Cape Colony, Cyprus, Jamaica, Canada, including India, Egypt, Malta, New Zealand, Botswana, all these countries were the countries of colonized community. They were known to be the colonized people, and they were actually the people who had initiated the decolonization. It also suggests, look, it is written over here that they are the colonized world, and they are standing as if they are the forgotten center of global modernity. As they were the suppressed people, they were the suppressed communities, they were considered to be the forgotten center of global modernity. The prefix post and post-colonial theory, which has been rigorously debated, it has never implied that colonialism has ended. Naturally, the word post itself shows that it is still going on, it is still consisting, it is still evolving and developing, and lingering forms of colonial authority after the formal end of empire. Other forms of post-colonial theory are openly endeavoring to imagine a world after colonialism but on which has yet to come into existence. The post-colonial theory emerged in the United States as well as UK academies in 1980s as part of a larger wave of new and politicized fields of humanistic inquiry, most notably feminism and critical race theory. Everywhere in most of the trajectories of English literature, as we had seen in the earlier presentation, that it could be considered in the form of ELT also, as well as in bio post-colonial theory also, or we can see it in feminist concern also, and we can discuss it with critical racial theory also. It is generally constituted that post-colonial theory emerges from and is deeply intended to anti-colonial thought from South Asia and Africa, because most of the people of South Asia and Africa, they were the colonized communities and they were the actual sufferers who could be considered the colonized people. So we had to accept it, and we have to right now also consider the anti-colonial thoughts and ideology with a view to South Asia as well as Africa. In the United States and UK academies, historically, its focus has been over regions, and that's why the expanse of theory emerges from Latin and South America. Over the course of the past 30 years, it has remained simultaneously tethered to the fact of colonial rule in the first half of the 20th century and committed to politics and justice. This has meant that it has taken multiple forms. Look, now the things are that seem to be very clear, as in the morning presentation you saw that Bill Ashcroft, Helen Tiffin and Gareth Griffin, or we talked about Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak or Anya Lumba, or we talk about Homi Bhabha, or naturally if we discuss Edward Said, most of the people had been discussed in post-colonial theory, so there isn't any much more interpretation necessary, there isn't any much more introduction necessary for these post-colonial identities. They are already discussed too much and too many times. In fact, exhausted. We are exhausted studying Edward Said and Homi K. Bhabha and Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak and Arya Lumba. So it's better that we could see the classics, the study of classics with the post-colonial identity, or with the post-colonial uh, new insight. Post-colonial literature resources, mostly very popular primary resources, are Raja Rao, his Kantapura, a story about heroic Indian villagers fighting the British in uh, pre-independence India. Villagers fighting the British in pre-independence India. It's considered to be the first major Indian novel in English. It's a good stuff. Amy Caesar, his notebook of a return to the native land, a classic text. Its poem of negritude movement, which took pride in black culture and identity, written by the Martinian poet Caesar. And other book of Nugiwa Thiongo, Petals of Blood, is discussed over here. In the same way, Dr. Pathan had taken the reference of Volso Inca and Nugiwa Thiongo's another book. So it is naturally, it is a study of post-colonial theory. Salman Rushdie, too many times he has been discussed about the post-colonial concepts. Still, I have taken over here the old concept of the studying the post-colonial texts, so that the students and researchers and other professors and research scholars and all could be thinking about the old texts, and now we could join the classics, which could be considered with a new post-colonial insight. J.M. Coetzee in Waiting for the Barbarians, or Isabella Allen, The House of the Spirits, all these literary experts, they had presented their post-colonial ideology in their books, as Chena Asheb in Things Fall Apart, No Longer at Ease, or Arrow of God. Jean Rice and his Wide Saragossa Sea, Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude, or Derek Walcott, Dream on Monkey Mountain. All these were the texts which were already been taken by most of the people who had done the researches on post-colonial influences. Now there are certain other new perspectives which are found over here in this post-colonial influences on classics. That's why I had taken over here one of the most famous critic, Jasbir Jain, who says Indian writing in English constitutes a pluralistic world, wherein the colonial past, the Indian heritage, the indigenous forms, the inherited and internalized culture, values, the oral tradition, the diasporic presence abroad, the parallels and differences from the language literature, all these jostle with each other. Partly it is representative of a multicultural situation, partly Indians are no longer apologetic on the defensive of self-conscious in their use of English. So the quotation I unquote over here, and the quotation itself suggests us Jasbir Jain's ideology that Indian classic literature is no more a personal Indian classic literature, but it has taken the space and place in world literature. It is considered to be the part of world literature, and Indian identity is always interested to show their nationalistic sensibility with a view to their own classic literature. We have been always listening to Ramayana, Mahabharat, and Srimad Devi Bhagavad and Srimad Bhagavad from very young age. And here I have taken all those great classics, the epics of world literature, Indian English literature even, and Indian classics, Ramayana, Mahabharat, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Devi Bhagavad, classical Sanskrit drama, classics of Greek literature, Iliad or Odyssey, classics of Latin literature like great King Arthur and his Knights novel, King Arthur and his Knights adventures. The same ideology I have taken over here to show that how monsters they had been harassing the human being, and the gods, those were the Indian gods in Indian Hinduism and in Hindu classic books like Ramayana, Mahabharat, or Devi Bhagavad. There are gods like Varun Dev or Agni Dev. They prefer to save the human being, and the monsters and the ghosts, the supernatural element, they were torturing the human being. So here we could see that the human beings could be considered as the suppressed identity or the colonized people. The gods could be considered the people, the identity who were helping the colonized human being, and the monsters, supernatural element, and the ghosts were known to be the imperialistic, or they could be considered as colonial powers. Here I have taken at least one particular example of Devi Bhagavad, which is very important for other researchers and the students who had been learning classic literature, or those who had been learning Indian English literature, Sanskrit literature. They could see their our original texts, Devi Bhagavad or Ramayana or Mahabharat, with a post-colonial perspective, or with the ideology of colonial imperialism or post-colonial identity or colonized identity. Look, three things I have mentioned over here: colonial imperialism, as for example, the monsters would have been showing in Ramayana. Ravan and his community, they were trying to suppress their people, and they had to follow certain rules. We know that in the story of Hiranyakashipu also, Hiranyakashipu was trying to control the community. They could not speak the, or they could not chant the name of Vishnu. That's why colonial imperialism could be considered. In the same way, post-colonial identities are naturally the identities which are which are suffering, or which are under the pressure. As for example, Ma Durga helped the gods and humans who were tortured and suppressed by the tyranny of Mahishasur, or Ram, Hanumanji, Vali, Jamvan. They could be considered or studied as the decolonizers. The studies can be done over the three main perspectives: colonial imperialism, post colonial identities, or colonized identities. Here I have taken the example of Devi Bhagavad, where Devi is supposed to be, she is helping the community. The community has been the colonized community under the pressure and torturing of the monsters. The monsters were torturing the human being, and they were under pressure. So they were asking the help to Devi Ma, that they need the support. They want to be free. They wanted the freedom, and they were too much tortured and harassed by the monsters and other Mahishasur, Raktabij, Shumb and Nishumb and other monsters, the whole kings and communities of monsters. So this could be the best example. I wish that this should be taken by the Indian students, because we have to be alert about our Indian culture, our religion, India, history, Ramayana, Mahabharat, Devi Bhagavad, all these things. Even cultural awareness is necessary. If we are studying the books and novels of V.S. Naipaul and Salman Rushdie and other Indian English writers. Naturally, it is our duty to study our own Indian ethnic literature also, Indian classic literature also. At least one or two books of post-colonial studies that could be studied with a view to the classic literature. And it's a very new idea to study the classics with a view to or in context with post-colonial theory. The ninth part of Devi Bhagavat shows how Devi helped the people on earth and other gods in heaven, how she freed them all by killing Mahishasur and giving all the freedom from the imperialism and colonial powers of monsters. Look, this is the exact example how she had helped the ordinary human being and the gods and goddess. There is one another picture where I had kept Devi Ma, and she is killing the monster Mahishasur, and he was the person who had shown imperialism over the human community as well as over the gods and goddesses, and he had tried to torture the people, and the people were under suppression and they were colonized, and that's why they went to Devi to ask the help and to get free or either to kill Mahishasur. That was the story. I think everybody knows, most of the Indian boys and girls or Indian people, they must know these stories of Indian culture. Devi Brahmari, she was also fighting with the monsters. She had taken the role of fly, black fly, and that is known as Brahmari, and that's why she was fighting with other monsters. And this could be the best example to show the win-win situation of the colonial powers or the colonized community over the imperialistic attitude. So this could be the best example for the classic studies with a view to post-colonial ideology. Srimad Devi Bhagavad, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharat, and many other resource books could be taken with a view to this classic study. So here I need to tell you the presentation. I think was it visible? I would like to ask Shirley if she is
Yes,
there
ma'am,
on
it
the.
was visible and clear, ma'am.
Yes. Then I need to tell you some of the things which I had found to share with with the research scholars and the participants over here. If I get the time, if
Yes,
it is
ma'am, you can.
convenient.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, you can.
Thank you very much. The most important thing that I have found in this study of post-colonialism with three main perspectives. Originally, it's the natural proclivity of the Indians to express their national sensibility in English. So, if there are certain new incentives which were found for the Indian or Western ethics, because Indian classic literature has not remained only Indian literature, yet it has become the world literature. And that's why, as it is in Ramayana, we can look into the characters of Ram, Vibhishan. Chronologically, Ravan as the imperialistic identity, the people who are living in Lanka as Vibhishan, or or he could be considered the colonized identity, the study of Vibhishan, or the study of Ram, as well as Ram, Hanumanji, Vali, Jambuvan. They could be considered as the community and the study of decolonizers. So the study could be done with these classic literature perspective. Even I have taken the example of Mahabharat also, and there I have created some of the main points of Mahabharat. As for example, Draupadi, she was the main leading character of Mahabharat, and how she was obsessed, and how she was taken under the courtroom, and her clothes were taken out by the Kauravas, and how the Kauravas were torturing, and their power and empathy, and they were trying to uh, show their imperialistic attitude to the Pandavas. The Pandavas were under pressure, they could not fight, but afterwards they had taken the decision to be in the race of colonial freedom, and that's why they showed their decolonized identity. Certain things, certain classics could be naturally studied with this decolonizing concept, or the idea of decolonization, or with the idea of this post-colonial identities, where people had been uh, had got the freedom, but still they were suffering under the post-colonial mindsets, as if it could be seen in the context of Hiranyakashipu's story of Prahlad, how Prahlad had helped the people, and how he had helped the community of Hiranyakashipu king. That old story, old ancient story of Prahlad, he was chanting japas, and he was chanting mantras of Vishnu, and his father told him that he is not allowed to speak the name of Vishnu, and that's why he was kicked out of the kingdom, and where then afterwards Hiranyakashipu himself was uh, killed by Nrusi, by the avatar of Nrusi. This Nrusi is the avatar of Vishnu itself. So all these things could be naturally taken, easily understood, and they were having, and they are right now also having, the post-colonial thoughts, post-colonial trajectory could be naturally implemented, or very easily it could be implemented with this classic literature. There is a need, I believe that there is a need of rejuvenation of classics, restudy of classics with these new concepts, because the students, I think, are too much involved in the study of Edward Said and Orientalism, Occident and Orients, and we studied Arya Lumba. Naturally, the students are also studying, but the incentive thinking and incentive perspectives are necessary in literature, as well as in post-colonial influence also. Most of the researches are done nowadays on feminist concerns, feminist books, and post-colonial and postmodernist views. So if something or some of the works are done on Indian classics also, then I wish that it is the good job for almost all the students and all the researchers also. The research would be opening new aromas, new rivieras, new plethora of purview of researches to do in this particular field of classics and its study, or post-colonial influence on classics, or finding the post-colonial identities from classics, or the study of classics, reinventing the post-colonial literature. So thank you very much. I think now most of the things are told in my presentation, and I wish that I could call.
Thank you, ma'am. You have you have interlinked the vivid field of post-colonialism and classical literature. It was meaningful to go with the stream of post-colonialism and inspiration. You was your presentation was very much inspiring, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If any questions, then I have 15 minutes to talk with. Afterwards, at 12:30, I can move on. Is there any questions from any sides? If they have listened, there will be questions.
Ma'am, very good afternoon and good to hear,
Thank you.
good to listen to your talk. It was really good, and we were exhilarated by the way you were trying to interlink between the classical thought and the present post-colonial ideas. And ma'am, have you really found out any theories that are matching with the current post-colonial theories? Is there any
Yes,
very specification on? Yeah, please go ahead.
yes. In a very specific way, we can naturally connect Devi Bhagwat 10th, 11th, and 12th part. 10th, 11th, and 12th part of Devi Bhagwat, where Devi had been trying to um she was trying to get the people free from the tyranny and from the anarchy and from the problems of Shumb and Nishumb, how they had been torturing, and they were trying to show their imperialistic attitude. These Shumb and Nishumb, they were the kings actually, but originally they were monsters, and they had been eating the human being and torturing the gods and goddesses, and even almost all the gods and goddesses, and including Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma, all the three great gods, they were also defeated by this strong Shumb and Nishumb. So it shows that Shumb and Nishumb, they were highly incorrigible and nobody was there to defeat them. So naturally there is a need of one strong person who could control them, and it shows that their imperialistic attitude, Shumb and Nishumb's imperialistic attitude, their tyranny, it is as similar, as equal as there were colonial powers in Great Britain, in India, or in India, or in naturally we can say that in Africa also, in black countries. So it shows that Britishers and Europeans power in their colonial proclivity is as similar as the monsters were doing their torturing over the wicked and poor and suppressed people of human beings, suppressed human being, or suppressed gods and goddesses. So both the things are equal in this concept of Devi Bhagavad. In that 10th, 11th and 12th part, it is known as Ank in Gujarati, or in Indian language, Hindi language, if you see, that it is known as Ank. So the same thing is found in Devi Bhagavad, as well as there are some characters also, like in Ramayana also I told you, and in Mahabharata there are many characters which could be considered as the colonized identity, those who could not, those people or those characters who could not um, rouse their voice, they could not speak, or they are suppressed. Certain characters, even individual character, or only 2 3 selected characters, limited characters, could be considered as colonized identity, and they could be taken as a part of research. This is exactly a new um, incentive area of research. There are no more researches done in the field of classics with a view to post-colonial concept. And some of my students who had been asking me the new topics for PhD, there I had given them this ideology. And one of the students, he has been doing, I wish to tell his topic over here, it will be useful to you people. He is doing research on Sundarkand of Ramayana, Sundarkand, and its comparison uh, with the story, with the movie, Hollywood movie, The Planet of the Apes. So it's the uh, exactly uh, vice versa, contradictory research, but he is doing that research. So certain things can be done. Yes, John is. Are you asking something?
Ma'am, there is one more question, I mean, raised by another viewer. And is there a finding from your research that myth and folk can play a major role in the future post-colonial literature with regard
Exactly.
to? Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. This is the best thing I think you have found from my presentation, that myth literature, folk literature, even the stories of Panchatantra, Aesops, or even the stories and fables, fairy tales, or Arabian Nights, or many Arab stories. Almost all these trajectories, all these parts were totally not at all, they were totally not at all taken previously by any of the researcher. So it is naturally a new trajectory, and it's a good ideology to be studied. So one has to do that kind of research if they wish to do in this new field. Aesop's stories are very much imaginative stories, just like Panchatantra stories, or just like the stories of fairy tales. Even in fairy tales we could see that there were the characters like Cinderella, or the characters like Rumpelstiltskin or Pinocchio. Certain stories might be having these ideologies of post-colonial theory, but one has to find it, reread it twice, thrice, or four, fifth time, and then only you will be in a position to find that decolonized idea or that colonizer's mindset or the post-colonial identity or the colonial imperialism. These terms must be clear in a mind of a researcher, and then they would be in a position to find myth, folk literature, or even that fables or children's stories also.
Ma'am, with regard to kind of feministic approach, or maybe it is like women who are suppressed in religion. I don't know how far the question is raised. Like, shall I read the question, ma'am? If
Of course.
religious aspects are linked with post-colonial literature, won't they be taken for a ride with regard to women? That's the question. So beautifully framed. We are expecting a better answer from you, ma'am.
Yes, if a religious perspective is taken for this post-colonial ideology, it is good so that the students will be, even the Indian as well as the world literature students, they would be in a position to come across the Indian religious books, because most of the students who had been learning the post-colonial theory or the literature or the theory of Indian English literature or feminist concern, they are taking the new writers like Chetan Bhagat, or they read like to read Kiran Anita Desai, Kiran Desai. So most of the students' proclivity shows that they are much more interested in English world literature or new literature books like Don Brown or Cindy Crawford or Perry Mason, John Grisham. So it is necessary for ourselves, our professors. It's our duty, I think, that we should teach them, or we should give them the chance to make at least one research paper on this classics and its study with some of the characters with a view to post-colonial theory or their concept in post-colonial mindsets and the contemporary mindsets and classic book. At least if they unearth some of these parts, it is necessary, because it's the high time to revive the study with our culture. Even national education policy, our new policy, teaches us that we have to alert our students for that cultural identity, multiculturalism, our own Indian national identity. NEP tells us that we need to teach our students Sanskrit, Hindi, Indian literature, as well as certain other Indian cultural things. So I think that if they create at least a research paper or a short dissertation or a thesis, it's a good thing for them to be in this part of classic literature.
Yeah, that's a possible answer, but though many may not agree with that, still linking literature with the classical religious aspects will really be opposed by the capitalistic ideas, or you call communist ideas, or radical thinkers who are really against the thought of religion that is linked with literature.
Most
However, yeah, ma'am, continue, ma'am, continue.
there are many researches which were done on Ramayana and on Sundarkand, and many previous researches were done on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's ideology, and each one, at least one particular poetic line of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that was also researched by many more saints and many more students. Even there are many Gita institutes also, Srimad Bhagavad Gita institutes. Those institutes are teaching Bhagavad Gita to the students. So it is merely a creative way of learning only. There won't be any more problematic thing. I believe that, because we do not insult any character, or we do not write any abusive thing in this particular work. So it's a creative intellectual sign only, that I wish and I believe.